The 10th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Saturday at 6 p.m.
Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news. Once again, from the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha, here is your host, Andrea McMaster.
Hello everyone, I'm Andrea McMaster and thank you for joining us for this edition of Consider This. As many as a third of Nebraska children arrive on their first day of school behind, with not knowing the basics they need to succeed in school. This puts them behind the curve, sometimes for the rest of their lives. United Ways across Nebraska, along with the Nebraska Children and Families Foundation and others, are hoping to prevent this startling statistic. The goal is to engage our children from the very start, at birth, so that when they arrive at kindergarten's doorstep with all of the tools they need to succeed in elementary school and beyond. The public service campaign is called Born Learning. We're going to take a look at a couple of the public service announcements to get us rolling here today.
Horseradish. Is that for horses? Banana. 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 Here comes the rain. We need a hat. And why do we need a hat? To say that. That's right.
When you talk with your child, you build vocabulary, and learning starts long before school does. For more tips, go to bornlearning.org.
For more information in your area, call 211.
Dimes are shiny and round. Nickels are also round. Dollars are not round. Dollars are rectangles. What can I buy with 2 rectangles?
A bus ride.
Good job, honey.
When you talk with your child, you build vocabulary, and learning starts long before school does. For more tips, go to bornlearning.org.
For more information in your area, call 211.
¿Clavos? ¿Eso es para martillar? Banana, 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 banana. Está por llover y necesitamos un sombrero. ¿Y para qué necesitamos un sombrero?
Para no mojarnos.
Exacto.
Al hablar con su hijo, usted construye su vocabulario. El aprendizaje comienza mucho antes que la escuela. Para más consejos útiles, visite bornlearning.org.
Para obtener más información en su área, llame al 211.
And there again, we saw 2 of the Born Learning campaign public service announcements. Really well done. I want to now introduce our 3 guests. Barb Valinsky, we'll begin with you from United Way of the Midlands. Thanks so much for being here today. And also Kathleen Feller from the Child Saving Institute. I'm glad to have you here as well.
Thank you for having me.
And Gitta Osterman from the Nebraska Children and Families Foundation, and NCFF is the lead agency that's helping with the Born Learning campaign. So before we get rolling to really talk about some concrete examples of what Born Learning campaign is and how we can help educate our family members, especially our little ones at home, I want to share some of the statistics with some folks to give us some background on what they know historically. Society has waited until kindergarten to invest in a child's academic development, but science now confirms that humans begin to learn almost from the moment of birth. Research shows that 95% of a human's brain growth takes place from birth to age 3. At the same time, critical neural connections are being made that affect our levels of trust and social attachment. Studies have shown that our society feels the effects over the long term when children aren't taught simple skills in those pre-kindergarten years. The ABC Project compared youngsters enrolled in a structured 5-year preschool program to kids in a control group who were not in a structured program. Reading scores were much lower for control group children throughout their school years. By age 15, they were nearly twice as likely to be held back a grade and 4 times as likely to require some sort of special education training. By age 21, the youngsters in the control group also had higher incidence of teen pregnancy and substance abuse, such as tobacco or illegal drugs. Rand Corporation figures indicate that for every dollar spent on early childhood education, society reaps from $1.80 to more than $17 in benefits, depending on the cost and effectiveness of the programs. So that gives us an idea here, some statistics that really speak volumes of why it's so important to begin educating at the beginning, from the very start. So tell us a little bit about why the Born Learning campaign got started. I'll have you answer that question.
Yeah, at the Nebraska Children and Families Foundation, we received a grant from the Nebraska Department of Education and the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services. And so in January of 2006, we launched this Born Learning campaign, which is part of a national effort. This is going on across the whole country, and so Nebraska has joined this national effort. And at the Nebraska Children and Families, we believe that the early years are so critical. Our foundation invests a lot in early childhood education, and we thought this will be a good step in the right directions to increase awareness among the public, and then also to educate parents and caregivers about the importance and about the things they can do to help children learn at an early age.
And United Ways across the nation really are involved as well.
Right, I believe they are. And in the state of Nebraska, I think a number of United Ways are involved. Our United Way of the Midlands is the lead agency in this metropolitan Omaha area to help support this campaign.
Okay. Well, let's talk about why it's so critical. Why are those early years, those first days even, so critical in learning and child brain development?
I think you really touched on it, that the brain, when a baby is born, the brain is already learning, and as adults, it's our responsibility to ensure what they're learning is positive, and that it's structured in a way that it's successful. You know, the foundation for any kindergarten or middle school or high school is what they learn those first 5 years of life, and then the first 5 years of life there is the most learning going on in any child's academic career, and so to focus on those is setting a foundation for future learning. And I think some of the statistics that you talked about were absolutely powerful to state that it shows that investing early on pays off tenfold in the future and education of little guys as well.
Why is it? Why do we have this problem in our state where a third of our children are going to school and kindergarten without the basics? Wherein lies the problem?
I think, you know, part of it is I think parents not understanding what learning is for an infant or for a toddler. I think in our minds we think learning is I have to sit down with them and we have to learn the ABCs and we have to learn the numbers, and not understanding that learning is that first initial contact, that first touch, that first eye contact, that holding, the talking, all of those things are learning, and that's what infants need early on, is to learn. And I think that parents sometimes just don't understand that the first phases of learning and the first phases of creating learning in the brain is that first contact, relationship, attachment, the nurturing, helping babies feel secure and safe in their environment are all learning pieces that set the foundation for future learning.
You know, and the campaign itself does a lot to help parents with everyday activities and not say you have to go out and buy special things. You can pick up a banana and say this is yellow. Or you can pick up the pizza dough like the lady was in the video and say this is round. And so it's everyday activities. So the campaign is promoting a lot of those everyday activities. And I think before we knew that we had to teach our infants, but we weren't emphasizing these very easy everyday activities that we could do to help parents help their children learn.
Well, I want to get back a little bit to what you were saying, Kathleen, and the whole fact of these everyday interactions. I mean, picture bringing home a newborn. You've got this little one, and really you think, oh, okay, it's really a year until they're going to start responding to you verbally with words, but that first year is so critical in their brain development. And so talking about some of that love and affection, giving that child that love and affection that helps them feel confident, relaxed, happy, which in turn then can help with the intellectual development.
Absolutely. Responding is so important. And you know, you talk about they can't verbally respond to you, but they respond in so many other ways from the first time you bring them home, meaning that when they're crying and they hear your voice and they stop crying, that's a response that they're comforted, that they're nurtured. You know, just the putting their arms out to you, you know, they can't say pick me up, but putting their arms out, they're responding that they want to be held or picked up or soothed or nurtured. And so there's responses beyond the just verbal responses that you get. They're so important early on as well.
Well, these are all from the Born Learning website, which is a wonderful website, that www.bornlearning.org. But a predictable world, I liked that too. Providing routines and consistent responses gives a child really trustworthy and teaches them that they can depend on you. All things that help provide them an environment for learning. Opportunities for fun, activities that most encourage a child's brain to grow are those that she or he might enjoy, right? And then the sound of your voice, you mentioned this one already. The newborn brain is especially interested in sounds. The building blocks of speech and language. Let a baby hear your voice as much as possible.
Absolutely.
And then understanding and patience. Respond to a child's needs without worrying that you might spoil him. I think we hear that a lot in our society about spoiling our children from 0 to 1. Oh, no, you're going to spoil your child. But there was some really good points bringing out here that they need to learn to trust you.
And there's some great research that links responsiveness to infants and how the brain develops based on that. And so it's wonderful to now have that research that you can say there's not an issue of spoiling before a year old. It's meeting children's needs and responding to those needs.
And time to digest new information, so beware of overstimulation. If a child is exposed to a lot of new information without time to digest or to process that information, she will maybe tune out or break down.
Absolutely.
So some really good points there. Getting back to an early childhood study that was released by the National Association of the State Boards of Education that's talked a little bit about the K through 12 system not being able to succeed in the No Child Left Behind unless they begin even earlier than kindergarten. So we're talking pre-K and preschools and really getting them involved and in making sure that the children are getting what they need. How can that happen? Will this be possible, do you think?
You know, I think it's possible. I think that everyone has to get on board with what learning is and how the little guys learn, because your 4 and 5-year-old don't learn the same way a 5th and 6th grader learn. And so I think everyone needs to get on board with how kids learn and then structure that so that it's works for little guys, because I do think that that's absolutely accurate, that we do need to start. And you know, in the 4 and 5-year-olds, it's you know, learning to get along with one another. I mean, those are learning skills that benefit later on in life, and it's some of those social emotional skills that go right along with the cognitive skills as well.
I think you're seeing a lot more emphasis now on early childhood. I don't think we've really seen that before. And I think the Born Learning campaign really does help emphasize that early learning. And that's how I think we're going to get ahead with some of these children that are not learning, is by putting more emphasis, by making people aware that children do learn early, and by giving them the tools to teach their children early on.
Why has that been so lacking? I know, Kathleen, you're involved in early childhood development and programs, but why has that been so lacking in our society, that there hasn't been as much of a focus on early childhood programs?
You know, I think there are so many important things that there's focus, that needs focus, that I think that there just hasn't been the knowledge that we now have of the research that says this has to be important if we want kids to succeed. I think that just in the last 5 and 10 years, we've gotten so much research on what kids need in an early age, and I don't think we really knew that before then. And so now that that's there and organizations like these are getting involved, it's able to spread that word to families, to other businesses, to organizations, to say that this is important and it needs to be addressed.
How are you hoping that parents respond to this, that parents take what they take home from this, the message that they get from the public service campaign?
Well, we have already heard a lot of positive responses. People love this campaign just because it's so easy to understand, it's fun, it promotes the message that you don't have to spend extra time. Parents can do this in everyday moments, like going to the grocery store, just to promote this learning. They don't have to spend extra time and set this aside, which is crucial because parents these days are so busy in their lives. And this is something, just a habit to change that they can implement in everyday lives. And Barb already touched on this. This campaign has really two main components. One is the awareness through the PSA's public service announcements. There's billboards up there, there's bus advertisements, so that's on a broader level. But we also target parents specifically by reaching out on the community level. A lot of our agencies are involved handing out parent educational materials to hospitals, to parents who just had a newborn baby. So we're trying to reach them on an individual level as well, and the response has really been fabulous.
And another goal is to get people to really log on to that website, right? Because they've got things on there for parents and for children of all ages. Some great activities. I can throw out a couple of examples. Barb gave a couple already, but ways to turn everyday moments into learning opportunities is what they're looking for. When a recipe calls for 3 eggs, ask your toddler to fetch the eggs, a simple lesson that mixes cooking with counting. That was one of the examples, though I don't know if you want a toddler carrying eggs. But call out the colors of the street lights as they change. Talk with the kids about the shape of the door, the throw rug, and the plates on the dinner table. Turn chores like laundry into learning activities. Ask your child to identify colors, help you separate lights and darks, or count the numbers of socks. So these activities will help build math and cooperation skills.
Absolutely.
So some concrete examples there.
Right. In addition, we have had a few events to highlight the campaign, not only highlight the campaign, but use it as an educational kind of a vehicle for parents. We had a rather large event at EduCare in cooperation with them and Nebraska Community Foundation, Family Foundation, this last September, and we attracted 300 parents. And at that time, we had a lot of exhibits from various agencies in the community, and we had a lot of little educational vignettes, I guess I'd have to call them, that were 10 minutes long to help parents with safety education, teaching children creative arts, dance, and some simple things that parents can do with children. So we will probably have a few more of those kinds of events this year to highlight what parents can do.
A lot of children today don't have mom and dad necessarily at home all of the time for teaching and for learning, and so they are going to preschools. Do you have any tips because that was something that was pointed out as part of this campaign, making sure that they have some good education when they're going off to maybe a daycare facility. So do you have some tips for parents and when they're looking for that type of facility and what they should look for? And how are some of the questions they should ask caregivers to make sure that their children are being engaged in those hours that mom and dad might not be able to be with them?
I think a lot of it is caregiver. You know a lot by meeting a person, seeing who they are, asking questions like, tell me about a typical day here, looking for those everyday kinds of things. I think also looking at the environment. Are there things at the child's level? Is there a lot of variety of opportunities for them to engage in? Also get referrals from other families and ask, on a day, what do the kids do? And also go observe, spend a day at the place you're planning on taking your child and observe how is a caregiver on the floor with them? Are they engaging them? Are they doing some of these things that we're talking about? And so really looking for those kinds of things. I have always said that your experience for your child is only as good as the caregiver that's caring for them. And so I think that's a vital piece to ensure that they're getting the engagement, they're getting the learning that they need.
Did you have something to add, Barb?
I think that not only are we directing the campaign at parents, but also caregivers. So this can be grandparents or aunts and uncles or your child care centers. Absolutely. So it's a broader brush than just the parents, because there are a lot of people that are coming in contact with the child. And so they all need to be having the tools that they need to help the child learn.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, why having the community really involved in a child's life is so critical, no matter what age they are. But grandparents and how they can be different teachers than mom and dad can be. And in what ways can grandparents maybe help engage a child or teach a child that a parent might not be able to? That involvement in a child's life has got to be critical.
Sure. Well, Kathleen's our expert here.
I don't know about expert, but I think grandparents, a lot of the same things that parents do, but I know in my experience with my own children, things my kids won't do for me or do with me, they'll do with grandma and grandpa. And so a lot of times grandparents and aunts and uncles have time where it maybe just is one-on-one with them, or it's time where they just get to do special things, and in those environments they're able to engage them in the learning as well, and opportunities that maybe a parent doesn't always have.
Right. I think that grandparents, aunts and uncles have that quality time that parents don't often have. And maybe we can help them use that time to teach young children.
Absolutely.
There was a site especially for fathers on the bornlearning.org. And I thought that was neat to see, that oftentimes we do think that maybe mom needs to play that role of the main teacher, but there's good ways for fathers to get involved, and how that can have a huge positive effect on how your child succeeds in school. So I know I'm asking you really broad questions here, but just kind of give some people some ideas of what maybe a dad could do with a child.
Right. Well, I think a dad can do a lot of things that the mother's doing. Can help feed the child, bathe the child, can change diapers. That everyone needs to take turns with that. I think sometimes we don't include dads in our upbringing, especially of young children, but they can be very helpful and be a very big part of their lives.
And I think typically dads bring a different mix, meaning that I think dads can involve kids in, outdoors when they're doing outdoor yard work. They can pile leaves up and they can count them. They can jump at them. They can pretend there's something. They can help carry the garbage out and talk about how heavy it is and does it weigh more or less than this. And so there's lots of things that they would get that experience with, and it's so important for dads to have that involvement with their child, not just early on but ongoing as well.
And why do they say that adds to a success rate for a child in school if both parents are involved? Is that just that support system, or is there actually something there with a child relaying to a male and relaying to a female as well as with their mother?
I think it's support. I think it's nurturing. I think it's safe. I think it's also that I'm important because both people in my life are involved in what I'm doing, whether it be sets of grandparents or aunts and uncles or whoever. I think that the more support you can give a child, obviously, the more successful they're going to be.
Okay, well, let's get back to a couple of the little nitpicks of the campaign, some background of the campaign, so folks know how long they can expect this campaign to be going on, and what really your goal is of the campaign, Gitta.
Well, the main goal is to change the perception, just make parents realize that they can use these everyday moments, and we try to do that through public awareness and on a community level too. I mean, everyone in the state needs to get involved, and that's why we created these local campaign groups from Scottsbluff to Omaha, North Platte. We have a lot of different agencies involved. We're also trying to get businesses on board to invest in this, so we're just trying to reach out to a broad audience and make this change that everyone invests and believes in early childhood education. Why is that critical to get businesses involved as well? They have financial resources and they have a lot of employees that we can reach. For example, one tactic that some of our partners are using is they provide a whole pack of born learning materials for parents who just had a newborn child, so the employer actually sends that to the hospital instead of flowers. That's just one example. They can distribute it among their employees. We actually went and had a booth at employee health fairs, so that's another way just to get the message out. We went to one where we reached over 1,000 people, so that's just a good way to get these materials in parents and caregivers' hands. Okay, so again, it goes back to the heart of the community really getting involved, from it being knowing that your employer is supporting you being a parent. It's really a grassroots approach on which this campaign is built. Okay, well that sounds wonderful. Well, I know that we can expect to see some of those public service announcements still on the air. Anything that you were going to add why this campaign is so critical, Kathleen, and in your personal experience with dealing with children for the past 12 years? You bet. I just truly believe that
It starts early and it starts now, and it's every single one of ours responsibility to do something about it. Whether you have children or you don't, if you don't, spread the word. If you do when that child comes up to you, or if you don't when the child comes up to you in the grocery store, make it a learning experience at that point. I just think that that's vital for us to continue to have adults who are successful.
Mm-hmm. They're learning from the minute they come home from the hospital or from the minute they're born.
Absolutely.
Well, I just want to say that United Way has a great interest in youth. We have about 33% of our funding for community care funding in the youth area. And we want youth to be successful in our community. And we know now that it begins very, very young. It doesn't begin when you're a teenager or when you're just starting school. And so we want to support this campaign so that our youth can be much more successful in this community.
Mm-hmm. It will make a difference in the long run, like we shared at the beginning.
Absolutely.
You're going to see a difference or a drop, hopefully, in the rate of alcoholism and drug use and other abuse, higher incidence of teen pregnancy for those children who don't have that good background and that foundation in the beginning years. And also this more time tutoring, special education training if you don't have those critical education in those beginning years.
Absolutely.
Well, we have a couple minutes left, so I want to make sure that all the folks know the websites to look at to get all this information so that they can go home and continue to do the research themselves or log on their own computers. One website, www.uwmidlands.org, so that's for United Way of the Midlands.org. Just type the Born Learning in the search box. And also www.nebraskachildren.org, which is the Nebraska Children and Families Foundation website. And then the bornlearning.org, which has information about child's age and stages of activities and ideas for activities. So if you're sitting at home and thinking that this is overwhelming, it gives you some good concrete examples to look at when you log onto that website. So all that being said, thank you very much, all three of you, for being here today. Barb Valinsky from the United Way of the Midlands, and Kathleen Feller from Child Saving Institute, and finally Gitta Osterman from the Nebraska Children and Families Foundation. I'm so glad that all three of you could be here together today, and hopefully these campaigns will make a difference. You've already started to see it, right, Gitta?
Right.
Okay. Well, and thank you for watching us this week on Consider This.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at unotv.unomaha.edu. If you'd like to share your comments about this show, call UNO TV at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours.
The 10th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Saturday at 6 p.m.
If you consider all the news stories you see on a daily newscast, you realize they can't give you much detail on the issues. But you can learn more about the issues that really matter if you consider this. I'm Andrea McMaster. Join me each week on Consider This, a program that examines the issues that really matter to Nebraskans. Watch Consider This each week.